All right, thank you guys so much. We have a very fun video in our Kill Rationalism series today. This will be a little less intellectually taxing, but I think it'll be fun, and I still think it'll be insightful. Now, today we're going to be talking about the connections between arationality and Etta James. So, learning more about Gebster, I'm learning more about this arationality stuff. I was listening to one of my favorite songs of all time, I'd Rather Go Blind by Etta James, which we'll be discussing in this video. And I realized that the lyrics speak of what Gebster is talking about. So it'll be fun. I think it'll be a fun video. So first off, let's talk about arational four-dimensional truths. What does that mean, really? So it's not a rational truth that is deduced via abstract conceptualization. For example, Socrates is a man, all men breathe, Socrates breathes. This is a completely logical, rational truth, and it maintains its validity, though the predominance of these 3D mental truths have been lowered. So it's not that we're negating the 3D rational truths. No, they maintain their validity and they stay where they are. They're just no longer the top dog. Now we went from 3D to 4D. Once 4D transcends 3D, 3D loses its claim to exclusive validity. So arational truths are not givens, but givings. That is to say, they are imparted to you by some invisible source in an amaterial space. So a give-in would be, the earth exists. Just kind of sense data that you take in without even any real thought about it. Just, this highlighter exists. My mouse pad exists. People die. I can just kind of empirically verify just anything that's given to you through just pure sense data, empirical verification. Whereas irrational truths are a giving, not a given. So they are, like I said, they are imparted to you by some invisible source in an amaterial space. So it has nothing to do with the space of abstract conceptualization. Usually these truths are derived experientially rather than through strict abstract logic or even empirical verification, because that would be 3D stuff. Pure empirical verification, that doesn't let you see deeper, which we're going to get into. So irrational truths allow you to see through what is visually encompassed and see the deeper, usually invisible, truth that is revealed through integral consciousness. Grottean morphology is a perfect example. I've used this example before, but I use it again. So take the horse, right? So the horse, if you notice, or I shouldn't say notice, when you're scientifically analyzing the horse and how it's objectively built, you will notice some similarities. One, the hooves are designed in such a way as to maximize resistance against the ground and to allow for the horse to glide, to run. The diaphragm is very large, of course, meaning they have to breathe a lot, which means you're not going to be standing still. They have very large teeth, which allows them to consume large amounts of fuel, which in turn fuels their ability to move. What else? Their legs are designed in a way to maximize resistance against the ground, just like their hooves. So there's a bunch of other stuff, but take all this stuff, right? So what is the quantifiably immeasurable telos or metaphysical unit that they are actualizing? What is the quantifiably immeasurable qualitative depths that the quantifiably measurable external aspects seem to be actualizing? That, according to Goethe, which I would agree, is movement. So the horse, the idea of the horse, the qualitative immanence of the horse, that every aspect of the external parts of the horse is an aspect of, or an actualization of, I should say, is movement. That is the idea that fuels the horse. So we're maintaining all those scientific truths because we wouldn't have been able to get those. We wouldn't have been able to get to the 4D integral truth of movement without understanding on a scientific level how the horse was structured, how it works on a scientific level. So that's a good example, but there are other examples. So like when you're doing your thing at work, you're just kind of in the flow, and then, bam, you suddenly and spontaneously see the rhythm that is intensifying the staff. Everyone is moving according to a rhythm. No one is static. Everyone is where they're needed to be. Everyone is helping each other out. We're recognizing the quantifiably immeasurable, qualitatively immanent structural intensities that fuel movements and actions in a spatial world. So in many ways, the acausal, discontinuous nature of these truths make them appear like epiphanies, so at least according to rational. That's how a rationalist would view them. But it's acausal. It's discontinuous. It's not this external, continuous time. Everything is this one process flux. No, there's all these discontinuous manifestations that completely toss out all this continuous stuff. But that's a good example. You're at work and it just sort of hits you one day. There's a rhythm here. And that's why the store or the business or whatever is working so effectively in the present moment, because everyone is in sync to this invisible rhythm that intensifies their actions. Let's give some more examples. The freestyling jazz musician, knows when to hit the exact right note at the exact right time, evoking in the audience an intense reaction / appreciation. The jazz musician, I can't say that. The jazz musician knows. It is not an intuitive hunch. So when the jazz musician is playing the sax or whatever, and he's building something, and he knows the payoff has to come at this note, at this time, with this amount of veracity, let's say. It's got to be loud or it's got to be soft. He knows this. It is not an intuitive hunch. It's not a guess based on strong intuition. So what the jazz musician is doing is he is arationally, not rationally or irrationally, arationally sensing an arational order that exists in an arational space that is of this world but not in it. Not in it insofar as we can't really see it, but we know it's there. So what's the jazz musician, God damn, I cannot speak, musician doing? God, I'm a moron. Again, when he knows, emphasis on knows, when to do the right note at the exact right time, there is an order that is above, in quotes, massive quotes, don't get lost on the spatialization, or beyond, don't get lost on the spatialization, what is immediately visible to him. So obviously there's an order in the sense that I'm playing on a stage, there's an audience, I have instruments, we have that rational common sense ordering, but there's another ordering here that's invisible and has to do with qualitative intensity, and that is what he is picking up on. He is irrationally sensing, he knows when to do it. So yes, there is a deeper domain of truth and knowledge beyond the merely visible rational 3D stuff. There is a 4D that intensifies this stuff. So pretty cool. So here's the final example here. So when speaking with someone about an important topic, maybe a negotiation or an emotionally charged issue, maybe you're, reconciling with your brother after like 30 years or something like that, or you're talking to someone about a dead friend or a dead mother, just a very touchy topic. You know when to speak and when not to speak. You know what to say and when to say it, not just intuitive hunch. You know when to say it and when not to say it. Same thing here, right? So we're aligning ourselves with a greater order that is revealed to us through direct experience. As I mentioned earlier, this order is invisible and qualitatively intense. It's of this world, but not really in it, in the sense that it has nothing to do with visible rational stuff. So when abstract conceptualization is brought back to a moderated balance and is integrated with all other aspects of the human condition in this sort of automatic flow and flux, now we awaken the ability for these irrational truths to be imparted to you. They come from this immaterial source. So that is irrational truths. I hope that's not all of them, obviously. There are tons and tons of other examples, and in 400 or 500 years, we're going to be talking about irrational stuff that I can't even conceive of at the present moment. So it has nothing really to do with rationalism. So hopefully you guys learned something a little bit. Now, let's talk about Etta James. Who is Etta James? Etta James is one of the greatest R&B singers of all time. She's a blues singer from like the 60s, 70s, and the creator of one of my favorite songs of all time, I'd Rather Go Blind. And I have to admit, I have to give credit where it is due. My girlfriend put me onto this song. So the only reason I'm kind of upset about that is because I'm a little ashamed that I hadn't heard of it earlier. Because I like Nina Simone, I like Al Green, I like Marvin Gaye. I mean, I'm not a super fan or anything like that, but I like the hits, and I like a couple deep cuts if I can find them. I don't know why I missed that. It kind of pissed me off. Otis Redding is good too. So let's go into the lyrics of I'd Rather Go Blind, and I'll leave a link in the description so you can listen to the song. It is absolutely beautiful. It is soul, touches the soul. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, so we're not going to analyze the lyrics of the whole song. We're going to analyze the lyrics of the first verse and maybe a little bit towards the end. The lyrics are as follows. Something told me it was over when I saw you and her talking. Something deep down in my soul said, cry, girl, when I saw you and that girl walking now. Okay, pretty simple. Now, of course, when you got a terrible voice like me saying that, it's not as effective, but listen to Etta. She is incredible. So the analysis. Quote, something told me it was over. That's the first line of the song. Something told me it was over when I saw you and her talking. What does she mean when she says something? What is that? Well, we know what it's not. It's not rationality. The truth that Etta arrives at here is without logic. She's not imposing space between her and the object of reflection, her man and his new girl at this point, and just doing a bunch of logic-lord abstract conceptualization, systematizing 1, 2, 3. Socrates a man, all men breathe. That's not. What the hell is it? That's just not here. It's not present here. It doesn't exist here. I don't know what to say. So something is not rationality. So instead, it seems that a truth is being imparted to her. So she's sitting at the ball or at the dance. Maybe she's a little drunk, and she looks over at her man, and her man is talking to a new woman. Something, this very vague, invisible, abstract thing, imparts a truth to her. Ready? Something told me it was over. So I'm looking at my girl or my man talk to a new girl, and something imparted a truth to me, and that truth is that this is over. This truth was not arrived at logically or rationally, and yet it is more true than any rational logic stuff, because you can rationalize away any of this feeling. By the way, it's not like at the end of the song he gets back with her. The relationship's done, and she knows it. This is a song about the exact moment, emphasis on the temporal aspect, discontinuous surging of intensity, and bringing with it qualitative presence. In this case, unfortunately, the recognition that it's over. So is this truth an irrational truth? I believe so. The truth about what's going on beneath the surface between her man and this new girl is being imparted to her. This is not really visible in the sense, because if it was just visible, you could rationalize it away and say, well, they're just talking. They haven't made out. They haven't hooked up. He hasn't cheated on me yet, so we don't know. I can't predict the future. No, you know when it's done. It's done, okay? It sucks, but it sucks. All right, the next line. Something deep down in my soul said, cry, girl, when I saw you and her walking now. So deep down in her soul, she says. That is very interesting. What does this mean? Well, it could mean that this is not an irrational truth, but a truth of the soul, which is to say an irrational truth. There does exist a thing, and they are beneficial. They carry a strong benefit. That is to say, they carry with them truths of the soul. I agree, obviously, that it would be wholly stupid to deploy irrationality, soul, mythological stuff, symbolism, and connections when we're trying to be mathematical or scientific or logical. I would never argue against that. Having said that, what do we know on this channel? We kill rationalism, so we're not going to be irrational. We're not going to be rational, logical, and abstract when it's time to be irrational, illogical, and direct. That's what irrational is. The soul, how does it feel? None of this abstract stuff. Feel. So even if it is the soul, even if this isn't an irrational truth, it could be an irrational truth that ended up being more true than any rational truth. And it signals that there is more to the world than just mere logic. Now, the soul must be fed, and it must be tended to. Why must it be fed? Quote, this is a line that she has towards the end of the song. Quote, when the reflection of the glass that I held to my lips now, babe, revealed the tears that were on my face, yeah. God, so good. Revealed the tears that were on my face. That clearly signals that there is an emotional element, an aspect to it. In this moment of recognition, she started to cry. That is why truths of the soul are important, because they affect you, and not only do they affect you so deeply that they will evoke tears in you, and they will do much, much more than that. So you need to stop being a rationalist and start to be a little more romantic. Maybe don't go the other way, but be balanced. And yes, feed the soul. Yes, read poetry. History of the soul, attributing sense to the senseless. Yes, read mythology. History of the soul, attributing sense to the senseless. You will never, ever, ever be able to find any sort of truths of the soul through external, logical, abstract, scientific stuff. Ever. I don't care if you're a rationalist like Richard Dawkins and you think that some cool, neat scientific truth, which I'm willing to grant, it does have a baseline level of fascination, is ever going to be even close to the resonance of truths of the soul, of meaning, of purpose, of irrational meaning, irrational truth, irrational soul. Yes, there can be a benefit to it. And now that, thanks to Gebser, we have assigned order to the pre-rational and the irrational, and even the irrational, we can channel these to our own liking. We can benefit our lives by stop doing this stupid rationalist nonsense. Okay, so that is what it could mean. It could mean it's an irrational truth. But it also could mean that it is an arational truth and that Etta simply miscategorized it as a truth of the soul. As much as I love Etta James, I'd be shocked if she read Jean Gebser. So if it's not rational, then what do we know about rationalists? If it's not rational and we can't conceive of arationality, it must be irrational. 1, 2, 3. So it's possible that she received an irrational truth, but she doesn't really know what that is consciously, so she just attributed it to irrational soul stuff. Or a truth of the heart, essentially. Or it could mean that irrational truths inherently strike the soul in accordance with its internal qualitative emphasis, the same emphasis that was present in the mythical structure. Remember the breathing characteristics of these structures and how they evolve or unfold. Remember, the first one was the magic structure. That's external. What was the preceding discovery that brought rise to the magic structure? That is nature or the world. And then it was the mythic structure. It was the soul that was discovered and then brought about the mythic structure, right? So the soul, obviously, is internal. And if you insist on using rationalist terms, the psyche, okay, same thing. The soul is in here. It's an internal emphasis. We're writing myths to talk about our feelings, essentially, and all that stuff. And then, of course, we have the mental structure. That's external. That is perspectivity. That is, say, objectified space. And now with the internal, it's time, but not as an extensity, as an intensity, of course, deriving from the same internal. So it is possible that arational and irrational, they're going to have a lot of similarities because they both have an internal qualitative emphasis. The mythical structure is internal, that's the soul, and qualitative emphasis, that's the soul. The soul assigns value, meaning, stuff like that, the quality of it. It's got nothing to do with these impersonal, valueless facts of rationality. Same thing with integral consciousness. We are integrating, it is internal, time as an intensity. Time intensifies and brings about qualitative presence. For example, when I'm listening to I'd Rather Go Blind by Etta James, it's not the 3.5 minutes that's important, right? That's time as a quantity. Time as a quality reveals itself in that 3.5 minutes. So when I hear I'd Rather Go Blind by Etta James, qualities are being revealed to me. Qualities such as appreciation, care, beauty, reserve, subtlety, heartbreak. Each moment possesses qualitative potential, even boredom. Boredom can bring aspects to your consciousness, measurement, care, maybe calmness. You can work with these things. Stop viewing each present moment as a mere quantitative, oh, I just have to do the dishes, right? Let's say you want to view it like the dishes. Yeah, you could view the dishes as 20 minutes of work, obviously reference to the quantity, and you could say, I want to get 30 dishes done, including cups, in those 20 minutes. So now what is the dishes really become? It's become a chore, something you don't really want to do, but something you have to do it because it's fun. There's no inherent meaning in it. And I'm not saying you don't have to do the dishes, but I am saying if you change your consciousness and you stop being a rationalist, doing the dishes can actually become a little more endurable because recognizing time as a qualitative intensity, we recognize that no, it's not just about doing the dishes. Doing the dishes brings about qualitative aspects. For example, it is care. I am being careful with the dishes. I am feeling connected to the sort of my immediate surroundings. The dishes is not something just to get over. It's something to pay attention to because in this I am able to get things done. There's just simple qualitative stuff. Think of like someone who does pottery. Each new shape or each new clay that you want to mold is a different thing onto itself. This brings with it attention, focus, right? But if I'm at a concert or if I'm drunk, time is going to present itself in different ways. No, I'm not going to be careful. I'm not going to be attentive. I'm not going to be focused. I'm going to be silly. I'm going to be dumb. I'm going to be goofy. I'm going to lose reserve, all that stuff. So think about time in that sense. And ultimately, I think this is Arational and irrational truths need to be respected. Enough of this rationalist nonsense. The entirety of the human condition must be respected, and we will reap the benefits. So that will be all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know this wasn't quite as intellectually taxing, but it was fun, and I I heard the song, had the discontinuous moment of realization, and then time fueled me to make this. So here we are. And I enjoy making connections like this. I think it's really cool. Sometimes it can be annoying because you want to turn it off, just enjoy stuff, but it's really fun. I love you guys so much. I hope you guys got put onto a new song maybe you'll like. Maybe get out of the trap stuff. I like some of it too. Don't get me wrong, but there's more out there. You guys are the best. I will see you soon, and I love you. Thank you guys.